The first module in your Algebra 2 class this semester is considered to be the prerequisite module. I've called it Module 0. These skills that you're going to learn within this module are from Algebra 1, and they will be utilized throughout the entire semester of Algebra 2. And so I just felt it to be very important to refresh your skills on this before we actually get into Module 1 of Algebra 2. Within this module, there's only one topic. It's going to be functions and rate of change within functions. In this topic, there's going to be three different objectives. Objective 1 is listed here. We're going to evaluate functions. I've given two problems that we're going to work through in this video. I'm going to do a problem, number 1 on the left, and then I'm going to have you pause the video and try number 4 on your own. It's a very similar problem to number 1, so you can mirror your work with mine to check your understanding through this process. For number 1, and let me specify too, I've listed the steps I'm going to take to solve number 1 in red in between these two questions. So as I'm doing this, please follow along and write down and take notes exactly how I write down and take notes. And then be aware of the steps I take too. Within math and through this entire semester, it's going to be very important to take some math step by step. And please show your work exactly how I show my work too. So for number 1, I'm given a function. The function k of n equals negative 2n cubed minus 5n. This is the piece of function that I'm going to input something into, and it's going to give me an output. The input they want me to find is k of 2, so my input is 2. And I need to write this down, so please write this down as well. Input of a function is the x value. That's very important to know, which means then the output is the y value. Both these are very important to know, and you will need to know those for your test. So the input in this case is 2. I'm going to input that into my function. It's going to spit out an output or a y value. The first step in that process is going to be to replace the variable n, the unknown variable, with parentheses. So please show this step, parenthesis cubed minus 5 parentheses. So instead of n's, I write cubed. Instead of n's, I write parentheses. I'm going to switch colors here because my second step then is to write the input, the x value that they tell me to evaluate, inside the parentheses. So this input of 2, I'm going to rewrite the entire thing just to show you my thought process here. It's negative 2 parenthesis cubed minus 5 parenthesis, and I'm going to put the input they're asking me to evaluate, 2, inside of the parentheses, just like so. The third step then, so as we're going along, I can check off these steps. I've done step 1, I've done step 2. Step 3 tells me to use PEMDAS, or orders of operations, to evaluate the function. So my third step, I know from PEMDAS that I work with powers first. So 2 cubed, you can use your calculator if you need to, but you should be able to do that in your head. 2 cubed is 8. 8 times negative 2 is negative 16, so this chunk becomes negative 16, and then minus 5 times 2 is 10. Now, the calculators, the graphing calculators you have, if you were to put this entire piece into your calculator, just like you see it with the parentheses, it should spit out the answer of negative 16 minus 10 is negative 26. So if you use your calculator, you should get the same exact answer, but it's important to know the math behind it as well. And finally, so I just did step 3, I did the actual math, and then finally step 4, we're going to practice writing them as coordinate points because I want to get you to be very familiar and comfortable with the fact that the input, this number 2 up here, is the x value of a coordinate point, and the output, the answer we get right here, is the y value. So your final answer, and my final answer right here, is negative 2, negative 26, where this is the x value, this is the y value. The function had an input of negative 2, it spit out an output of negative 26. Please square and check your answer so that I'm well aware of where your answer is. And as you pause the video in just a second and try number 4, your work should look very similar to mine. Step 1, 2, 3, 4, square in your answer. Please get in the habit of doing that. Now, if you would, pause the video, try number 4 on your own, taking it step by step. At this point, you should have paused the video and tried number 4 on your own. I have listed out steps 1 through 4 of how I would have solved the problem, so please check your work against mine. If you did not get 3,87 as your answer, please raise your hand so we can go over your work. But as you see, I've listed out the steps. The first step was to replace the x variable with my parentheses, which I did right here. Then inside the parentheses in step 2, I've put the input that they want me to evaluate, which is 3. So any place I saw an x, I had to write 3 inside of a parentheses instead. Third step is I actually do the math behind it. 3 cubed was 27, times 3 is 81, 2 times 3 is 6, so 81 plus 6 finally is 87. And finally, 3,87 is my coordinate point, where 3 is my x value, 87 is my y value. So again, if your work doesn't look like this, please raise your hand so we can go over it together. At this time, if you've done number 4 correctly, you are ready to practice these 4 problems down here. Your goal should be max 3 4 out of 4.